built between 1898 and 1907 in the heart of a town that was in full process of modernization and prosperous due to the grain commerce, the Mihail Palace was from the beginning one of the important buildings in town. In a town in full swing of renewal, Constantin Mihail, one of the best-known landowners of the time, wanted to have a house that would reflect and maybe emphasize his social position. Famous for his fortune, with studies of agriculture in Vienna, Constantin Mihail had a grand vision regarding his future house. This is the reason why he chose the famous in the epoch French architect Alfred Jules Paul Gautreau, that came in our country as architect of the royal Romanian family. Paul Gautreau, together with the Italian architect Constantino Cicchi, put into practice the plans for the erecting of the Mihail Palace. From architectural point of view, the palace expresses very well the dominant tendency in the period, the European eclecticism, combining successfully the rigor of the French academism with elements belonging to the late Baroque. The interior reflects what we can call a luxury ambience: Carrara marble stairs, chandeliers made of Murano crystal, Venetian mirrors, caryatides, columns with embellished capitals, and the golden stucco worker. Besides the main stairs, ornated with decorative ironwork, made probably in the Vienna workshops, there were two secondary stairs to facilitate the access between levels. The walls were upholstered in lion silk, and a part of the ceiling were painted. The interior was designed so that it would have a very good natural light, with large windows and skylights that emphasize during daylight the refined details of execution. They say that Ștefan Lucian, important personalities of the Romanian art, offered to paint the interiors of the Mihail Palace, but, out of snobism, probably wasn't accepted. The decorators' team were made up of foreign masters, especially Italians, and taking into consideration that the architect that supervised the works was Italian, these options become obvious. We must say that the palace had electric light and central heating, which was a great comfort for those days. It was the first private house in Craiova that had central heating of the Roman type, with pipes built in walls and floor, which ensured an optimum circulation of the warm air. Constantin Mihail didn't get the chance to enjoy the comfort of the palace. He died in 1908, leaving his entire fortune to his sons, Nicolae and Jean. Thus, although the palace was finished in 1907, the inauguration took place in 1909, being postponed because of the death of the father. Nicolae Mihail chose to spend most of his life in France, where he got a doctor's degree in law, and in the last part of his life he decided to radically change his lifestyle, adopting the Franciscan monachal habits. After Nicolae's death in 1918, Jean Mihail remained the last descendant of the family. He was a cultivated person with modern views. He had studied law in Paris because he had wanted to pursue a political career, a project he abandoned after he was elected several times as deputy or senator in the Romanian parliament. But he had become, even before the First World War, a very important person in the high society of that time. In 1913, King Carol I and the members of the royal Romanian family were hosted in the palace with the occasion of the inauguration of the monument Asta e muzica ce-mi place. This is the music I like, made by the sculptor Dumitrescu Pavelescu Dimu. In 1915, in the palace, stayed King Ferdinand, with the occasion of a visit he had made at the military hospital in Craiova, together with Queen Mary and General Alexandru Averescu. During the First World War, the palace became the headquarters of the German army, while the owner took refuge probably in Iași, in Moldavia. In 1936, Jean Mihail, the last descendant of the family, died, leaving through a will his entire fortune to the Romanian state, wanting the majority part of his fortune to be used for public utility works that would satisfy some of the many necessities needed due to the growth and flourishing of the country. This uncommonly generous gesture is the reason why the collective memory remembers this building as Jean Mihail Palace. The Second World War came, and the palace was again in the middle of events. In 1939, here was hosted the Commander-in-Chief of the Polish Army, Marshal Edward Witzmigli, together with his suite, then the President of Poland, Ignacy Mościcki, and his family. From Craiova, the Polish President and probably the Polish State Treasury left Romania through Yugoslavia to England. The Mihail Palace was the place where on 7 September 1940 the Craiova Peace Treaty was signed. Through that, the quadrilateral was yielded to Bulgaria. In the period 21st October 1943, the palace was opened for the first time to the public with an exhibition called Oltenia's Week. Organized under the patronage of the Royal Cultural Foundation King Carol I, Oltenia's Week was the most important exhibition organized until that moment in this area. Having as a model the Universal Exhibition, it integrated the most representative accomplishment in the Oltenia region: agricultural products, industrial items, spiritual objects, etc. In the autumn of 1944, in the palace lived for a few weeks the President of Yugoslavia, General Josip Broz Tito, and with this occasion, on 4th of October, there was signed an agreement between Yugoslavia and Bulgaria, through which the hostilities between the two countries were stopped. After the Second World War, the palace was the headquarters for different institutions. From 1945 to 1950, in the palace was the headquarters for the Romanian Association for the Strengthening of the Relations with the Soviet Union. Since 1954, following the decision to set up an art collection, the palace becomes the headquarters of the Art Museum of Craiova. A part of Alexander and Aristia Aman Painting Gallery, which was the first museum in Craiova, being opened in 1908 in Grigore and Elena Lăceanu's house, now Alexander and Aristia Aman County Library, was transferred to the building. But the patrimony of the Art Museum became richer and richer over the years through important transfers from the Romanian National Art Museum, the State Reserves, but also from acquisitions counting today over 8,000 European and Romanian artworks. In 2009, 100 years after the inauguration of the palace, through a project that had been supported with generosity by the local and European authorities, the building entered into a complex process of strengthening and restoration, and it was reopened in 2015. Art Museum of Craiova is organized on two main galleries. On the ground floor, we normally have the European gallery, with Dutch, Flemish, French and Italian works of art. Among the most valuable paintings of the Dutch school we can mention Man with a Goblet, or the Portrait of the Mayor of Utrecht by Henri de Voix, Portrait of a Man by Jacob Adriaens Becker, Portrait of a Woman, or The Regent, by an anonymous painter at the end of the 17th century, Group of Animals by Jacob van Stree, Still Life with Fruit and Oyster, anonymous painter, The Interior of St. Bava Cathedral, Haarlem, by Peter Neffs, and Lady Working on a Sock by a woman artist, Elizabeth Alida van Hanen. All these works are typical examples of the Dutch painting in the 17th century and are executed with great accuracy in a sober palette with few colors subtly combined. The most valuable paintings from the Flemish school are mainly landscapes, but also a few portraits, such as Landscape with Figures by Philip van Dapels, Portrait of Queen Anne of Austria by an anonymous painter whose manner reminds us of Francis II Purbiu the Young, Woman with a Working Basket by Leonard de France, but also an art room by Franz Franken III. The French school is represented in the Art Museum of Craiova by paintings, sculptures, and works of decorative art from the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. Among the important canvases we can enumerate Waiting by Arid Scheffer, Street in Cairo by Theodore Frere, Walk in the Park by Adolphe Lefebvre, Landscape with Trees by Charles Dulac, and Landscape with a River by François Labruyère. The Italian painting school is illustrated by works from the 16th to 18th centuries, among which works to mention in art The Holy Family, Grey Monochrome by anonymous painter, The May Month and the December Month by Leandro da Ponte Bassano, Guardian Angel by Francesco Furini, Daniel Proving Susanna's Innocence to Nebuchadnezzar by Sebastiano Ricci, Saint Apollonia, the Passion of the Deities by Giovanni Maria Chiagarolo, Venus with a Mirror by Charles Bianchini, and Saint Cicely Playing the Harpsichord by anonymous painter. Gallery of Women in Art, situated on the first floor of the museum, starts with a room full of medieval art, icons, porch pillars, worked in the Brâncoveanu style, but also many objects used by the priests in Orthodox churches and also by icons. Among the icons we have to mention a Virgin dating from the end of the 17th century, a Deisis from the end of the 17th century, and another work executed by the painter Nicol of Tismana in 1741. It's very interesting the fact that normally the icons are not dated or signed by the artist. They are anonymous works. From the icons, we pass to the room in which we have portraits, primitive portraits, or the beginning of the painting of portraits in Romanian art. Among these, we have some local personalities, such as Cavalry Commander Dimitri Aman, which is the father of the famous painter Todor Aman, the portrait of Lady Balș, and a family scene by Iosif August Soft, a Hungarian painter that came to our country to do the portraits of important and rich people. Todor Aman, it's the next room. Todor Aman, born in Craiova, is one of the founders of the School of Fine Arts in Bucharest, and a great portrait maker, a fact very well demonstrated by the portraits that he made of his family's members, such as Pepica Aman, his mother, Alexander Aman, his brother, and Aristia Aman, his sister-in-law. Or the 5 portraits that he did to the Racovița family, which became related to the Aman family through the marriage of one of the nephews of Theodor. The genre painting and the still life represents an important chapter in Todor Aman's creation. So we have garden party, woman painting, lady with a parrot, cherries, or autumn. A genuine rhapsode of the Romanian land, Nicolae Grigorescu was the first Romanian artist to paint what he felt, whether he painted landscapes or people. Wagon with oxen, shepherd boys with their flocks, thinking, head of a girl, head of a little girl, Ganein in Barbizon, village church, wagon with oxen crossing a river, or shepherd girl. Nicolae Grigorescu was a member of the team of painters that participated as volunteers at the campaign for the winning of the independence of Romania in 1877-1878. In our museum you can find one variant of the Zmădan attack, a very important battle from the Independence War. Ștefan Luchieman, a great lyric and an outstanding colorist that created an art full of warmth and profound humanism. He was the painter of flowers and optimism, shepherd girl, chrysanthemums, anemones, flowers. The creation of Nicolae Tonitza from the period between the two world wars leaves the visitors with a very strong impression. At Mangalia, portrait of a young woman the green cat. Gheorghe Petrașcu's realistic and vigorous work is remarkable by its density, gravity, brightness, and emphatic effects, by the singular craft with which the artist rendered the objects he painted, and by its modernity. Nude with a red book ruins in Târgoviște, Interior Art Decoruta, flowers. The universe of painting of Theodor Palladi consists of female nudes, interiors, still lifes, flowers, and reveals to the visitors the joy and love of life and enchantment of this artist with an unusual sensibility, especially when he is observing the nature's perfection. Elder tree with flowers and lemons, Cleopatra, the girl with tulips, nude in a white chemise, bridge over Sena, still life with pistol. A painter gifted with exceptional qualities, Eustachiu Stoinescu was a great talent, a virtuoso, a real magician of the brush, and as a portrait maker, especially in the interwar period, he was recognized as an international authority on the subject. Child at table, the green dress, portrait of Prince Grigorie Glica, market in Craiova, Portrait of Stelian Popescu, Portrait of Professor Papillon, Ion Suculescu, an undeniable original artist, taking his inspiration from the Romanian folk art and especially from the decorative motifs and colors of the Oltenian or Moldavian carpets. Suculescu created, in the so-called folklore period, a world of magnific beauty. Once upon a time, the black coach, the hunter, winter in the woods, leaves on the snow, the most interesting and original period of creation is the totemic symbolic abstract one. Suculescu created here a strange world, in which the reality is coded, circuits, heat, looks, depth, apocalypse, The visit in the Art Museum of Craiova usually ends in the Constantin Brâncuș cabinet. Considered today one of the greatest sculptors in the world, Constantin Brâncuș entered in the history of the universal art as the father of the modern sculpture, as the artist that brought a complete change in the evolution of art.